Hello, everybody. Welcome. Hopefully, you can hear my lovely voice this time around, and welcome to the first ever webinar brought to you by the NUEL in partnership with Gscience, optimizing your performance in your tournaments and maybe some other events and parts of your life as well. Who really knows? I will be your host, Alex Swan, otherwise known as Moss Swan on the internet. You can see my Twitter handle below me. I will be joined, or am joined actually, rather, by Ryan Scudland and Landon Gorbenko. I think I got the names better this time around. You can see their lovely Twitter handles below their faces right currently now on stream. I'm going to quickly introduce them both and then I'll let them do their own thing very briefly. Ryan here is the co-founder and CEO of Gscience. Ryan is a sports scientist. He's an esports performance coach and co-founder and the CEO of Gscience. He graduated from Loughborough University with a first-class honors degree in sport and exercise science in 2018. He's previously worked for Black Box, Adidas, and was part of the Propel Ignite Technology Accelerator 2019 cohort. Welcome, Ryan, to the show.
Thanks very much for having me, Alex. Excited to be here.
Oh, it's exciting to have you both here. Landon, on the other hand, he is a master performance psychiatrist. He is a mental game performance coach with a plethora of esport players underneath his belt from all types of levels. He is the co-founder of the Northern Esports Academy, dedicated to creating the next generation of gamers. He also happens to be the director and performance director of performance for Power Up Academy. And you might also know him from the No Tilt Mind podcast. Welcome, Landon.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Pleasure to have you both here. We've done this a few times now, so I know where we're going with this. Landon, would you do me the honors of introducing yourself and giving a bit of a background of who you are?
Yeah, for sure. So as we went through the first time, I've been in gaming since pretty much the day I was born or the day I could pick up a controller. It's just been such a core part of my life, pretty much as long as I can remember, starting with the NES. I did the unfortunate thing of doing a lot of things wrong when it came to gaming. I got severely obese, got things like depression and severe social anxiety, and I just wasn't functioning well. And I wanted to make a change in my life, so I went forward, got my degree in psychology, got my master's in performance psychology, and then I just kind of like slammed those two fields together where I combined esports with performance psychology and psychology. And the great thing about that is, one, we're going to be kind of making your life a little bit healthier, like mental health, physical health. But on the other hand, we're also going to be improving your game performance using those same things. So it's just a it's just a double win there. And that was the way that I found that I could merge my passion with all my education and training. And so now I work as a mental performance coach or a performance consultant within esports, and teams or companies will bring me in and I'll work with them and we'll make their teams a little bit stronger, both mentally and physically. And then you'll see a whole bunch of in-game results from that down the road as well.
That's truly phenomenal. It seems like you do so much and you brought your passion and your education together to help so many people.
Smashed them together. I knew I was going to be in esports. I didn't know how, but I found my way eventually.
Brilliant. And Ryan, we must introduce you as well. Would you tell us a little bit about your history and how you've come to be?
Certainly. I suppose it's going back for me. When I was 18, even, I had to kind of choose what I was passionate about. And for me, it was always about sport. Like, I've been a competitor all my life and playing traditional sports with rugby and Gaelic football, and then also in esports as well. Like, my game's Call of Duty, which I'm super passionate about, and I've been grinding that since even the days of Call of Duty 4. Um, and I made a decision to go to Loughborough University. Like, I'm a very competitive person. I looked for which university was number one in the world for sports science, and I got my grades and I went there. And since going to Loughborough, like, it really, really changed me as an individual, really challenged me in so many ways. And I was very, very lucky to have the chance to travel to Australia and did a semester abroad in Perth, which is a phenomenal experience just for a life experience. And then I also spent a summer out in America working with children with disabilities at summer camp, which is another very grounding experience. And came back from all that, spent a year working at Adidas in kind of business analytics and sports marketing, which were plenty of perks of the job there. And I learned a lot just holistically about business. And then came into my final year, was an incredibly stressful year, trying to manage everything. But I was lucky enough to get a first class honors. I also did a thesis in neuromuscular physiology and really specialized in kind of skill acquisition and in the neuroscience side, which really fascinates me. Hence why I have an obsession with science and cognitive athletes in esports. But kind of fast forward, I moved back home with my partner Molly, who I met at Loughborough, and I I was at the stage where I wanted to set up a company, but had no idea where to start. And I've always been a big advocate of kind of exercise as medicine and taking preventative steps to improving or to preventing a lot of issues when it comes to health and wellness. So I looked at a lot of like kind of wearable technologies and looked to
Mm.
see if there's a way in which I could start there, but that was quite complicated. And I have an exercise that I always recommend people try doing if you're kind of unsure right now, what you want to do in your life is get a piece of paper, or in my case, the whiteboard, and draw up
Oh, I love
three
a
circles.
whiteboard.
Oh yeah, that's how I do all my brainstorming. Um, but yeah, so the first circle for me was, what am I good at? So I reckoned I was all right at, sports science. I've been a personal trainer, sports coach, and know a wee bit about that. And then the second thing is what you enjoy doing. And for me, it's always been working with people and coaching people and helping them realize their potential. I get a lot out of that personally. And then the third thing was, who's going to pay me for this, and what industry can I apply this to? And for weeks, I genuinely like I was working for one of my friends at a company here, a fitness company. And I was doing like early morning boot camps, like 5:40 in the morning, and then going to work a full day at Black Box, then coming back and sometimes doing personal training. It was tough at that stage, but I went under the board one night after playing a game of Call of Duty, and it just clicked. And I just realized there and then I was like, esports and gaming is one of my passions that I have kind of hidden for a while, and I feel like this is the right time to get back into it. And then, long story short, guys, found out that I had the skill set and knowledge to solve real problems in the industry. And we've all seen it now over the last 2 years in terms of all the issues around poor physical mental health,
Mm.
even at the top level with players training for 8 to 12 hours a day, the grind mentality and culture, the lack of qualified practitioners, the lack of published science. And then kind of
Yep.
for every aspiring pro player here, which I'm sure there's plenty of people listening, the pathway to the pro is so fragmented, and it's so tough to know how do you get scouted, what you got to do. And because of some of these factors, that leads to people pushing themselves very hard and burning out, and it's very unsustainable and unhealthy. And then even at the recreational level, people are really turning to gaming now, especially during COVID and lockdown.
Mm.
I really empathize with everyone who's currently probably at university. If you're watching this from your dorm room, it's an incredibly tough time for everyone. I think it's really important now for everyone to pull together and stay connected through gaming, but ensure that you're doing it in a healthy and sustainable way, making sure you're taking regular breaks, getting outdoors and exercising, taking care of yourself, getting good food, good rest, and just staying connected online. If you can't see your friends in real life because it's too much of a risk, jump on a game, you know, go do a raid in Destiny, go do some Warzone in Call of Duty, or jump in the Rift, whatever it may be. So yeah, so that kind of brings me to where I'm at now. I just spent the last 2 years, you know, working in the industry, speaking to people from ESL to complexity to Fnatic, trying to really understand, what are the key pain points and problems in training performance, and how we at Gscience can build the solutions to solve them problems. And it brings me on to here with the NUEL, which we're very excited about this partnership, and really, really hope we can give a lot to the community. And I really say to everyone listening to this now, if you have questions, please just ping them at us right now. We'll do our best to answer what we can. But it's great to be here today, so thanks for having
Thank you, Ryan, for such a detailed but quick explanation of everything. Yeah, absolutely. Listen to Ryan. If you've got any questions, throw it into Twitch chat. I'll grab them, get them prepared, and then we'll be asking any of your questions. We've also got a few questions that have been previously asked, which we will go into. But first question I actually have to ask you both, which wasn't a question actually on any of the lists, but it's relevant. Have either of you played in a NUEL tournament?
Yes.
Oh.
I had a brief stint when I was doing my master's program. I did it in Scotland.
Hmm.
And like I said, I love video games, so I immediately found the League of Legends club, jumped on board, and then promptly lost every game. I think we won a few. I think, just to clarify, I think we won a few, but it wasn't great.
Ryan, yourself?
Yeah, for me, unfortunately not, guys. To be honest with you, I actually played rugby at Loughborough,
Oh,
so
okay.
yeah, so that was most of my time. I
You
did
are
have
out in the field. It's okay.
I was out in the field, unfortunately, but I still was playing Call of Duty with my mates, but had very little time at uni to play games, unfortunately. But still, if anyone wants to play a game of Warzone with me now, please reach out to me. Always happy to play at the weekends. give me a shout.
What a handle is below his
Yeah.
name, so you know where to reach him, ladies and gentlemen. You know where to reach him. Gentlemen, our first topic is a more serious topic that we're going to have to obviously talk about. Ryan's already briefly touched on it. Let's have a brief conversation about COVID and both of your thoughts on how you would recommend people dealing with COVID if they're currently in a lockdown, if potentially there might be a lockdown coming, if it's a second lockdown for them, or just kind of ways to deal effectively with COVID, because I think that's the first subject we should talk about, because once it's done, know more about it.
Yep. Yeah, I can jump on this one real quick because I know
Yeah.
within because I'm Canadian, so I work within the Canadian industry mostly, and I have a lot of traditional sport organizations starting to contact me because they know that I work in esports, and they're telling me about how their athletes specifically are now really struggling because you can't go out and you can't play hockey or you can't play anything because of lockdowns, and it's causing a massive spike in depression and some other kind of feelings of connectedness within particularly developmental groups, like when you're looking at 8 to 18-year-olds, like they need friends, right? And now that's all gone because of that. So they're starting to actually look at esports and gaming as the remedy because we are kind of, I don't want to say COVID proof, but we're a little bit, right? Like a lot of our communities exist online. We have our Discord servers, we have our channels, we have YouTube, we have Twitch. We can really engage with the people that we want to engage with still. And that's actually my biggest piece is make sure that you're taking the effort to engage with people because watching stuff on YouTube or watching stuff on Twitch is great. You're still connecting with the community, but actually engage with it, right? Get in the chat, make sure you're active in your Discord servers. Just make sure you're putting in the effort to communicate with people because passively connecting with the community isn't as effective as actively communicating with the community. So that's my biggest piece of advice. Just make sure that you're engaging with all the communities that you're part of online.
Would you suggest that maybe someone that was more on the sidelines, maybe joined a few servers, occasionally messaged, but then that was kind of it? They're more of a sidelines person. Would you recommend that they try and come out of their comfort zone? And how would you, one, actually recommend they come out of their comfort zone and maybe reach out to others if it's not really the kind of thing they do?
Yeah, I think also you do have to kind of consider beforehand, like, what is that personality like? Like, are
Of
they
course,
more
yeah.
introverted? Are they more extroverted? If you are more introverted, then maybe just that, like, sideline engagement is good enough for you.
Okay.
But if you were somebody that loves video games, loves gaming, loves esports, all that good stuff, but you were a very social person in real life as well pre-COVID, you really do need to put in the effort to go harder and engage more online because you're
Sure.
not going to be getting that physical touch. You're not going to be getting that like communication with each other. So you do need to put in more effort now to try and get some return from that social environment.
Mm.
So yeah, it depends. Make sure you understand how much social engagement you need, and then find ways to engage with the community online to meet that need.
Sure. And Ryan, you already briefly talked about this. Obviously, there might be some students in their dorm rooms right this second, listening to us talk at the moment. It can be very difficult when your eating area, your sleeping area, your gaming area, and potentially if you've got an ensuite, if you have the luxury, is all in like the same kind of 3 to 5 meter space. What's an effective way to kind of deal with that for COVID? And because you can't leave your room as often as you used to. Obviously, you already said try and leave when safe and try and relax as best as possible. But how would you recommend students that maybe might be in a dorm room tackle COVID effectively?
Look, to be honest with you, it's an incredibly tough time for everyone globally, and there's no point beating around the bush with that. There's no really quick fix for any of these things, and I genuinely think right now it's just about support. And I feel like if you are struggling, if you are suffering, if you've got anxiety, if you've got depression, if you are finding a really big challenge, make sure you just reach out to someone. That could be a family member, it could be an old friend, it could literally be anyone. But it's just really important to talk about these problems right now and to be connected, as a community. And I just think, yeah, the university experience, if you're a fresher right now, is just totally different to
Yeah.
to anything that anyone can ever
Mm.
imagine. And I just think it's about kind of the art of interpretation, like how do you frame it? There is still a way in which you can still make friends like through the NUEL, through these online communities. And I think it's your first time and maybe you don't have some friends at university and you are kind of anxious about, how's this going to affect my whole university experience? You meet most of your best friends and sometimes your first week. I think, yeah, just look for these online communities and just try to get involved. I think that's the key thing. Get involved, talk about it. And I'm sure if you speak to someone else and open up, you'll be surprised that everyone's probably feeling the same right now. There's a
Mm.
lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of anxiety. And going back to kind of your initial question, how can you manage that? I think for me, what really helps is using mindfulness and meditation. I think sometimes our
Okay.
minds can get the best of us, and I think you can start telling yourself like a narrative. It's quite negative, and it is really down to how you frame your circumstances and how you frame, what you're currently going through. So I think trying to really kind of bring yourself back down and try to rationalize the thing, and then look for ways in which you can um, kind of take care of yourself as well. So I think, yeah, really focus on your mental health, doing things like that. And then secondly, I understand a lot of dorm rooms are very small. I mean, it's going to be hard to kind of compartmentalize your life. For me, this is where I game, but also where I work. And
Mm.
then, I have my bed where I sleep. I have the dining room where I kind of like, go eat and chill out and stuff. So, I mean, trying to maybe set like specific zones for like tasks that you do, like, studying, doing your lectures, gaming, this is your chill out zone, whatever it may be.
Mm.
But really, trying to switch off in between them points. But yeah, and I think even doing home workouts, if you can do body weight workouts. There's lots of resources that we can give you access to within Gscience to kind of keep yourself fit and healthy, because exercise is going to do a whole lot of good for both your gaming performance, but also for releasing endorphins and maintaining a positive mental state. So they would just be a kind of few of my wee nuggets in terms of how to best take care of yourself during these times.
Brilliant. I mean, I need to ask a quick question just myself because I heard this tip. If you use the same computer for gaming at the same time as also studying, a tip I heard was actually creating different profiles and locking down the separate profile. Would that be something that either of you would think would be effective, or would that not be such a thing?
You know what? I truthfully, I'm gonna be honest here. I hadn't really thought of something like that before, but it makes sense. Like, when I wouldn't take like my leisure stuff into the office per se. Like I always try and separate so that when I'm in the office or I'm at work, a little bit
Mm.
harder with COVID, like Ryan was mentioning. But when I'm in that workspace, I'm in that workspace. And when I'm in that League of Legends space, I'm in that League of Legends space. And there's not a whole lot of bleeding over there. So I guess in terms of like digital boundaries, that might be a good way to start. I mean, give it a try. Worst thing you can do is give it a try, and then it doesn't work, and you stop. But it's definitely worth a try.
Yeah. Brilliant. Ryan, any thoughts or anything else that you came to mind when I said something like that? Like separate profiles, separate accounts kind of thing, or just kind of removing things, maybe having only playing games on consoles, and if your laptop is only a machine for studying, for instance.
Yeah, I think some really interesting things. What I do personally is like
Hmm.
when you finish work, for example, like I decompress for like 5 to 10 minutes. So I'll literally just go out of my work room into like the living room and just literally like take 5 minutes where I just chill, literally just sit with my thoughts and just do some deep breathing. And that really helps me switch out of like work business Ryan into right, let's relax and enjoy the rest of my life, Ryan.
Hmm.
And I think, yeah, trying to do things like that so you have like a bit of a switch in your brain to say, right, I'm going to focus on my lectures and studying now. I'm going to focus on my gaming now. I'm going to focus on something else. And I think sometimes being able to transition and maintain focus like that can really help.
Is that part of the meditation you were talking about earlier?
Yeah, I think. Well, to be honest, like
A tiny bit.
I'm still a novice when it comes to
Oh,
kind of
oh.
mindfulness and kind of the mental health side of things. But I just feel like living in a mindful way can be really beneficial and really trying to be present and in the now. And that's hard to do, and it's very easy to say but very hard to do, and it takes years upon years of practice to do that, but it would very much be like a mindful way of living and being
Hmm.
able to give your focus to the task that you're working on at that current time.
Cool.
And on that note too, with the mindfulness that Ryan was talking about, it's really great to start your day off with it as well. Like start the day and kick it off with some mindfulness and some meditation. Clear your mind of all the bad stuff that happened yesterday and get in the zone for today. Start thinking about, be just very present in the tasks and things you have to accomplish today. Get a priority list going, but really just kick your day off with understanding what you need to do and be in that moment. Because without that, oftentimes it's very easy to kind of get distracted and procrastinate, and then you miss stuff. Then at the end of the day, you beat yourself up. You're like, I should have been doing this all day, but you didn't. So having that mindfulness bit right at the beginning really helps you accomplish a lot more during the day.
Okay. Well, I think that's enough talk necessarily directly around COVID and kind of that topic of conversation. Gentlemen, we've been asked a few questions to run through. You prepared for these, and we're also getting some of the questions already in the Twitch chat. So thank you so much for those already, ladies and gentlemen. But the first question, or kind of rabbit hole, I guess, as it could be, that we're going to go down is, how important is exercise in terms of helping in-game performance, gentlemen? Who wants to take this first, and then we'll kind of have a conversation.
Sounds
Should
like
I,
a Ryan question.
should I start with that
Hi,
now?
Ryan.
Look, I think first of all, let's frame what is exercise. because there's many different forms of exercise. It could literally be going for a walk, very low intensity, or it could be, doing a crazy CrossFit class or running a marathon. And I think first of all, you need to talk about what type of exercise you're going to do. Given the current times, and if you're in lockdown, body weight exercises, yoga, stretching, stuff like that there are fantastic for just keeping your body in good nick, and it's great for your mental health as well, which I've already said. But specifically in terms of kind of exercise and its correlation with in-game performance, it's actually quite important. When you exercise, you increase the blood flow to your brain. Given the fact that esports is a cognitive sport, there is a massive carryover in your ability in terms of increasing your reaction times, your cognitive functioning, your executive functioning capacity. Um, Also, exercise is great for stress relief, and there's a very cathartic effect there as well. So if you exercise prior to gaming as well, you'll go in a lot more focused, but also a lot calmer,
Hmm.
which really helps with kind of emotional regulation as well in game. And then also the most important one is kind of the release of serotonin and dopamine, your kind of happy hormones. So when you do exercise, it's a natural high. That's what many people would say. So I would
Hmm.
always recommend, making sure that you are doing daily doses of exercise because it just really helps to maintain a positive mood state as well. And then I suppose specifically, but maybe not directly correlated, is if you're fit and healthy and you've got good core and lower back endurance, if you're sitting in this position for a long period of time, or you're hunched over, um, one of the key things we focus with when we do physical screenings with professional esports players is really looking at their lower back endurance and core endurance. And
Mm.
we want to ensure that they're strong, and we focus on their hip flexors as well to ensure that they can they can maintain kind of sitting there for 8 to 12 hours a day. So I think it's super important from an injury risk side of things as well to ensure that you have a strong core and lower back if you're going to be sitting for long periods. And then just another wee tip as well is just in between your breaks and in between games, just get up and just do literally a bit of movement or a small bit of scapular rotation or something very very simple just to break that crunched over posture that a lot of people tend to get into. So yeah, to summarize, it is very important. So do your exercise, folks.
I can almost guarantee that as Ryan said that, a lot of the viewers probably started like tightening their core a
Yeah.
little bit, rotating their shoulders. It's every time I hear somebody talk about it, they're like, oh, and then I immediately started paying attention to it. But yeah,
It-
to add a little bit onto what Ryan said, Alex, I think you were mentioning that you recently listened to the podcast I do with Mike, and Mike made a really cool point where he's like, when it comes to esport fitness, it's not about being able to lift the most weights. It's not about being able to run the marathons. It's about functional fitness, right? Like we want
Mm.
general life health. We don't want that lower back pain. We don't want any joint pain when we're leaning on our shoulder all day with the mouse or whatever it might be. So it's you don't have to be the next Arnold or anything like that. You just have to make sure that your body is not hurting and it's just functionally fit.
Sure. And within that, people think of exercise, they think of their diet at the same time. How important is diet, very briefly, for esports competitors?
Oh, it's incredibly important. It's like it really is fundamentally. I mean, it's kind of like if you put the wrong fuel into a car, it's not going to go anywhere. And
Sure.
given that your brain is fueled by glucose, it's important to make sure that you've got the right composition of carbohydrates, fats, and protein in your diet, and supplementing then that with
Mm.
microvitamins as well and minerals. I think just to kind of touch on it, one of the key things I always focus on with nutrition, without going into too much detail, is just making sure that you've got a solid base. Don't be looking at like these stupid G Fuel things and oh, I
Hmm.
don't know if we can say that no sponsors or anything, but I'm just saying in terms of like be really focus on just building a holistic, solid base of like solid foods when it comes to your diet, and then look for natural sources. So, like one of the best kind of, let's say, stimulants, or if you want to get the competitive edge, is caffeine. You taking a
Mm.
black coffee, prior 30 minutes prior to gaming is going to give you a massive boost. And then there's other really cool things as well. Like if you're used to coffee and drink quite a lot, if you come off it for maybe a week or two when you're not competing, and then drink coffee when you are competing, you'll get an even greater performance boost in game. So it's train low, compete high strategy. But yeah, I think just with gamers as well, making
Mm.
sure like really simple things is just not eating like a large carbohydrate dense meal before you game. All of that blood flow is going to go from your brain to your stomach because you're digesting the food. It's going to make you feel really slow and lethargic. So really focus on, getting that meal in maybe like 2 to 3 hours
Okay.
prior to the gaming, and then an hour before really focus on like maybe like a high GI, simple sugar that you can take, and then get your coffee in as well. I personally like protein balls, so on a Saturday when I'm gaming, I'll have my coffee, my black coffee, and fire a few protein balls in there as well. So yeah, if you're interested in that and you do have more questions, like feel free to reach out to us and even drop into our Discord, and we'll do a session on that if you want to see what the best competition day diet is.
Brilliant. And I mean,
Yeah.
Gscience actually did a really cool article on caffeine and the pros and cons. So it's over on their website. Also, 30 minutes before you're about to game, ladies and gentlemen, sponsor of the NUEL, get some Red Bull in you. It's been allowed.
There we
You can
go.
do that. You can do it. Go ahead,
No
Landon.
comment. No comments.
I was gonna say at least Ryan didn't drop any Red Bull names or anything like that. He said G Fuel.
Yeah.
We're all good. You're
We're
good,
all good.
Ryan.
We're all good.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things with esports is when you're at like a LAN center or a venue, whatever, like what kind of snacks are there? It's usually high sugared candy or whatever, like those kind of things. And with that, you're looking at some massive glucose spikes and sugar spikes, and everybody knows that when you have a lot of sugar and you come off that, you kind of slow down, you get groggy. It's very hard when you're coming off of a sugar high. It's very hard to think. You might not really notice it, like you might not feel it per se. You might feel like you're still normal, that you can still perform.
Yeah.
But your thought process, your decision making skill, or even like reaction time or decision making can be changed by a few split seconds, right? And when you're playing League of Legends and there's a last second call and you're in a team fight, that matters. And so if you're coming off of a huge sugar high at the wrong time, it's gonna just devastate your game. And so it's diet does play a huge role in managing your energy levels throughout the day.
So what we're gonna do, quick roundup. Have a good diet, everybody. Eat less junk food. Bit of caffeine or sugar just before your competition, but only before. Eat your main meal 2 to 3 hours before. And everybody, you need to start exercising, because let's be real, we're all gamers and we lack the exercise half the time. Start doing a bit of basic exercise, and in between games, little bit of just stretching, just to kind of get the muscles moving that might have been sitting there for about 50 minutes or so, or maybe longer in some crazy sessions of Civilization, if you're that kind of person.
Yeah. Alex, don't forget as well, drink your water.
Oh,
Stay hydrated.
Hydration Nation.
Oh,
Yeah.
come on.
Hydration Nation.
Oh, yeah.
I want to see some water in the chat, everybody. Let's get that going. Let's go on to our next question, and this is something we touched on a bunch of times when we were just talking, getting prepared for this. Weirdly enough, it wasn't exercise, everybody. I know, it's crazy. What do you think the components of tilt are, and how can you treat them? So tilt is a huge topic that lots of people have their own thoughts about, but they're not actually fully educated on, and they just think they have this idea of what tilt is. So I think, Landon, this is more of your kind of domain or subject.
All you,
Yeah, I might know a thing or two here.
Okay.
This is I don't know if it's the most common, but this is absolutely something that's like a day-to-day basis kind of dealing with for me, because everybody gets tilted. I get tilted. Ryan gets tilted. Alex, you probably get tilted every once in a while. Like, it doesn't matter who you are, you get tilted, and you have to be prepared for that. You have to like know your prevention strategies. You have to know your recovery strategies. And the thing is like one of the beginning points of managing tilt is awareness. Everybody can look back and be like, wow, I was tilted in those games. Wow, I broke down in frustration or anger that game. Like you can see it when you look backwards, but when you're in the moment, you feel that rage, and it kind of just takes over your decision-making process. It takes over what information you focus on in game. Like if anybody that plays League of Legends out there and you're in solo queue and your bot lane just runs down a double, for the next like 15 minutes, your focus is on that one play, right? Like all you can think about is how your bot lane is feeding, how you're upset, and you stop paying attention to what needs to be done to win, because you're so focused on that one thing that triggered you. And that's one of the biggest things with tilt, is people get focused on one specific event, and then it feels like they get the perception that everything after that event is bad because they're tilted. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I did when I came into esports first was I really focused heavily on the prevention, right? Like I want to make sure that you're aware of what I call them your trigger points, because when you're in solo queue or in team play, everybody kind of gets tilted by different factors, whether it's like chat, comms, decision-making, mechanics, whatever it is. Like people have different trigger points. So becoming aware of your trigger points, and then trying to prevent that by knowing it and then creating like a pre-performance routine, which we can touch on a little bit more if anybody wants to go into that. But that was one of my big focus points, was prevention. What I quickly realized is that we're all human. We're all gonna, no matter how much prevention we do, we're all gonna tilt at one point. And I was finding that I needed to add another component into this whole thing when this was like mid-game recovery things of how do we recover from tilt when it does hit. Like, we did all prevention, everything was good, we've been good for the most part, but now this game happened, something happened, and now we're tilted. So we had to focus on in-game prevention. And lots of times that just comes down to simple reframing or trigger words that you use to kind of get yourself back into the right state of mind. I always throw in, and this is a little hot tip for people out there, you might have heard of things like trigger words before, where you're just like, I got this, folks, next play, whatever it might be. I throw in a physical component to that too. So I call this the light switch method. When you find that you're getting tilted and you're not focusing on the right information, or you're too busy screaming at teammates, remind yourself to say your trigger word, but then add like the motion of a light switch. So you flip the switch, right? So you like focus next play, flip the switch. And the reason I do that is because thoughts are kind of like, they're fleeting, right? They're not real, they're not tangible, they're not something you can see or feel. And so you think the trigger word, and then next thing you know, you're right back in that tilt. When you add that physical component of flipping the switch, it gives you something a little bit more tangible to attach those words to. So focus next play, right? Flip the switch, there you go. And now it's a little bit easier to kind of like remember it as the game is going on. So those were the two major components of tilt that I brought into esports, was the one prevention and pre-performance routines, and then in-game tilt management. But I then realized I needed a third component to this. So you can see, like, tilt is
program.
Yeah, exactly. tilt takes over, right? Like, tilt can win and lose games. Tilt, it doesn't matter how gifted you are at a game or how much effort you put into it. If you tilt, your game's over, more for the most part. And because of that, let's say our prevention didn't work this game, our in-game didn't work this time. So now we're left with a recovery. We got to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And after the game, we'll go into things like debriefing. We'll talk about personally, like, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? Then we'll talk about it as a team. We'll get like a feedback session going. We'll really try and dig up what happened in that game. And I don't mean just, okay, so we threw at Baron because we pushed Baron too hard, we pushed it at bad time. I mean, going a little bit deeper than that and thinking about like the thought process behind that. So why did we choose to go Baron there? What was the rationale? What was the emotion behind that decision? Sure. Identify that emotion, and now you can start to see some of your trigger points, because you now understand the emotion influenced your your thought process. That thought process influences the behaviors in game. So if you take that a little bit further and identify those feelings and those emotions that caused the bad play to happen, then you can start to work on it. And this is where it kind of like loops back to the start. When you do that part and you start building that awareness and that identification of what caused the problem, now you can bring that recovery process back to kind of like influence how your prevention is structured, because you now know what's tilting you, right? Like, you use that information, so you now know what's tilting you, so you can plan your prevention around that. So it's like a big self-feeding circle. But when you have all three of those components together, you can better manage tilt, just because it is one of the most core devastating components of gaming.
And is this something you would suggest that teams, like amateur teams playing in the NUEL, should start implementing, especially if they want to take it a little bit more seriously, and as opposed to just a few friends jumping on playing some competitive, but they're having fun with it? If they want to get to the top and maybe hit the top 8 at least spot, would this be something, if you know that one or two members of the team, let's be real, everybody struggles with tilt at some point once in a while, would you say this is something that you should implement as like a group of 4 or 5 people?
100%. Absolutely. I can almost guarantee you, and this is from when I played in the NUEL and other teams that I've seen or other teams that I work with, everybody tilts, and you can always benefit from some kind of anti-tilt strategies or some recovery, or even just understanding what tilt is, so that you can become aware of when you're getting tilted. And I'm sure everybody's done this too, right? They get in like that loser's queue cycle where they queue up for a game, they get tilted, they lose. So they queue up for another game, they lose, and that tilt carries on. So then they get even more tilted, and that cycle continues. And it's because you don't have a function to disrupt what's going on. You're not really being aware of what's going on in that moment. You think you're fine, but really you're not being objective about how it's impacting your game, and it's just causing you. And you go into that like loser's queue cycle where you just lose and lose and lose and lose. And so any team, whether it's individuals or the team as a whole, you can absolutely benefit from like understanding tilt prevention methods, recovery methods, any kind of information that you can get on tilt. It will be hugely helpful and impactful for your game.
Wow. That's a quick 5-minute snippet of what you can do when you're faced with tilt, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go on to our next question that we've already got because we need to keep blipping through all of these as quick as possible. And this is something that I definitely know both of you can give your own personal thoughts on that. And this is, how can you prepare for your first game of the day? You know it's game day, you're in a call with your mates, you're either playing Call of Duty, you're playing CSGO, you're playing Rocket League, League of Legends. Who knows what you're playing, but you're playing your first game of the day. How can you prepare, gentlemen? Who wants to take this first? Let's hear from Ryan, because we haven't heard from you for a little bit.
I got to give my voice a rest.
Yeah. No, that's a good question. So I think first things first, on an individual basis, you've got to make sure that you have done everything you can do best to prepare before you think look at it from a team perspective.
Like the diet you were talking about, kind of thing.
Yeah, listen, the way I see life is just like we are kind of the product of our habits every day.
Sure.
And I think look at listen, everything in life starts with self-awareness. That's the part of the mindfulness bit. Being self-aware about how your daily habits influence your in-game performance, influence you at university, influence you in a relationship, whatever it may be. It starts with understanding yourself and being self-aware. So I think once you have that like that true understanding, then you can start to say, okay, what are my good habits that I'm going to embed in my routine to enable me to perform at my best when it matters? So I think then for me, just what I do, up at 6:30, cold shower, Wim Hof breathing, to-do list, black coffee, off to work. They're my like non-negotiables, and that just helps me get me in the right mindset to start my day well. So I think for you, if you're you've got games in the day, it's really about breaking down that morning or breaking down the afternoon before you start playing and saying, okay, what are the key things I need to have nailed down here? So it could be your diet, it could be getting some exercise, it could be writing down what is the like focus for this session if it's not a tournament. What are my clear, tangible goals that we want to
Sure.
practice on individually and also as a team? So being really clear in terms of what you're trying to get out of each session or each tournament, I think that's very, very important. So it's accumulation of factors, both personal, team, and yeah, and really simple things as well, which pisses me off in esports is being on time, showing up, being
Oh,
on
yeah,
time.
huge.
That's a big thing as well. And I'm going to be honest, if my COD team were here, they'd be like literally slating me. Sometimes they're pretty bad at that. But being on time super important. And then also for me personally, getting a hype man or hype woman, you need to get the energy in the squad. Like if we're going to go out and win stuff, you want to be top 8. Never mind top 8, you want to be number 1. That's my
Sure.
mentality. But
Okay.
if you want, you got to get the energy right in the team. You got to get everyone ready to go and focused on the day. So that's personally how I do it. But just my advice.
Cool. Landon, anything for the mental kind of part to get yourself in the right mindset? I mean, a quick note I put here was the zone. You probably know what I'm talking about here.
Oh, the zone, or also known in esports, popping off.
Oh.
Yeah, no, I definitely got a few things. I'll keep this one a little bit shorter. But
Okay.
just to kind of tack on with what Ryan said,
Mm.
those morning routines are huge. Everybody does have their performance zones within the day. So for me, for example, I always, almost without fail, climb the best in League of Legends in the morning. Like that's just where I prefer to be because I'm a morning person. But so I have my morning routine that I follow every morning, and I think I just actually tweeted about today because it was an absolutely gorgeous sunrise where I was doing my mindfulness training myself. But if you're prepping for that first game of the day and you're ready, whether it's like a team or a solo queue or whatever it is, I'm a huge proponent of note taking. So let's say yesterday you were playing your games and you were taking down notes of how it was going, what's happening, what went right, what went wrong, what do I need to work on. The next morning when you're working on like preparing for the next game, go over those notes, see what you need to be working on today, then kind of create a priority list. So sorry, I use League of Legends a lot as my reference point just because that's what I play. So let's say I'm an ADC and I noticed that yesterday my CSing was bad. So I take that note and I turn it into an actionable item for today so that my training is very focused on what I need to be working on. Because without that, you kind of just go into that autopilot state. You play a 35-minute game, you then queue up again, you play another 35-minute game. You're not really learning from it. But if you are referencing the notes you took before or from the day or the week beforehand, and then using that to structure your training, you're going to get a little bit more out of it. And so that's just a little bit more of that mindfulness biz. I know we keep on using that word, but it's huge. In esports, it's huge because everything has to do with your mind.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, the NUEL hosts a plethora of games and tournaments. And I mean, if you're playing Teamfight Tactics, you want to be running over things that you were doing wrong and you weren't transitioning correctly. If you're playing League of Legends, I mean, Landon, you've already covered exactly what you should be doing in League of Legends with CSing. There's aim labs now. That's a great tool if you're a Counter-Strike or Valorant player. Rocket League, you can just jump into practice. Fortnite, you can jump into practice lobbies and really prepare. And it's good to hear that you both are like kind of championing this idea of practice and thinking about what you did in the past, come back, bring it together and actually improve yourself for the future. Kind of almost like homework in a way, which to a university student isn't the best thing to say. Let's be real.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
I think the way to frame this is right. If you want to be the best at anything, like if people are serious here who are listening to this, who actually want to try to make it pro, like think how difficult it actually is to become a professional esports athlete. Same in
Sure.
traditional sports, how difficult it is. Like talent itself is not going to get you there. Yes, you can be super talented, but if you don't have the right attitude and you're lazy, you're not going to get picked up. And I think that you've got to approach this if this is your goal and this is your why, you've got to really like take it seriously as if it is your full time job.
Hmm.
And you got to prioritize that. And it is the daily habits. It is doing the journaling. It is just being there on time and showing up and being focused. That's going to set you apart. And ultimately, doing them small things on a daily basis is going to lead to that long term success.
yeah, and on that as well, hours alone aren't going to get you there. I know that almost everybody has heard that whole 10,000 hours thing, and you can play for 10,000 hours, you can play for 20,000 hours, but if those hours don't mean anything, you're not going to develop your skill. You have to make sure that, like Ryan said, it's hard to become pro. There is millions of people that want that spot. You're competing with some of the best. So how are you going to set yourself apart, get more information from each game, and develop your skill a little bit more than everybody else each game? And so it really comes down to understanding what you need to be working on, how every minute of that game matters, and how you can extract the most information from that game and turn it into actionable items for the future.
Brilliant. Wow, that's a lot. I hope everyone out there's been taking notes because there's a lot to go through and we sadly can't recap anything and clarify more. We need to move on to our next topic, gentlemen. And this is more of an interesting one because if this is far more of a solo queue or kind of just matchmaking lobby problem you might get, how can you keep yourself in the right mindset when things are losing out of your control, i.e., people are using glitches, hacks, maybe a ping issue that you can't control, like your university internet just died for no reason? How can you keep yourself like in a good mindset and a positive mindset?
I can jump on this one again if you
Yeah,
like.
go for it, man. I'm
All
just
right.
sticking straight away Warzone and hackers for me when I play against any PC players like that. That's tough. But Landon,
Yeah.
you take it away first. I'll give you my
Well, I
insights
mean,
after.
like Ryan's a Warzone, I'm League, so a lot of the uncontrollables I'll think of are in League, and that's AFKs or people running it down or whatever it might be. It's out of your control, and because solo queue is a different environment than the team play. This is like a quick little strategy that I tell a lot of my clients that I work with is think of solo queue as almost like a single player game in the sense, and so there's going to be 5 people on the other team and 4 people that are on your team, right? Like that's the balance. And when there's like an equal opportunity or an equal probability that a player will do something that's uncontrollable. So if you do whatever you can to increase the probability that you're contributing to your team in a positive way, the probability is on your side that over long term you're going to come out on the positive because you're only dealing with 4 uncontrollables, they're dealing with 5 uncontrollables. So if you are controlling yourself to the optimal condition every game, you're increasing the probability of a positive win rate over a long period of time. And I know that doesn't really help you with the frustration that comes along with it. But if you then look at that match as kind of like a single player game in the sense, let's say your teammate is running it down. You can shift your perception a little bit to see like to think of it as like this is the game mechanics that's increasing the difficulty or the level of this level. So how do I as the only controllable thing on this match go forward and conquer that level, right? Like, so if you see it as this is just the difficulty of the level and you have to beat the level, that helps with the frustration a little bit because now you're focused on what you can control within the match rather than getting so frustrated with this uncontrollable because you're seeing it as like a mechanic of the game that this person running it down in bot lane is a mechanic of the level. So how do I beat this level because of that?
Yeah,
I know I kind of went in a circle there. I didn't explain it fully well, but that's kind of think of it as like a single player game and you trying to beat a more difficult level.
So would you recommend, out of interest, muting all and muting microphones if it were in Call of Duty or CS:GO, or in League of Legends? Obviously, mute all chat. Would those be things you would recommend, or kind of leave those on and just not interject and kind of interact too much with?
Yeah, definitely. So the way that I play, and this is just like my personal way
Yeah,
that I
of
go,
course, of course.
is first I will mute chat. So again, League of Legends, I mute the chat, but I don't mute my pings because pings can still convey information, and you aren't necessarily seeing them flame you. If they start
Mm.
spam pinging, then I mute pings as well. But I immediately mute the chat because think about, if you ask yourself, like, what's the purpose of typing? Are you, a lot of people kind of get that vigilante sense where somebody is doing something bad, so I gotta prove that they're wrong or I gotta correct them. That doesn't help. Like, what are you really accomplishing there? Are you going to change the way they act? Are you distracting yourself? Are you putting effort into something that's not actually helping you win the game? Like, why are you typing? Just ask yourself that. Even if you're trying to be positive, do you think it's going to impact the way that they're doing things? The best case scenario is to mute them and then focus on your win conditions and increasing the probability of a win.
Mm.
So yeah, different stages, like mute chat first, mute pings next, mute voice if you need to, whatever game mechanics you're playing with. The mute function is definitely your best friend in a solo queue setting. If you're on a team-based university team or whatever it is, don't mute your teammates. You got to work through that, right?
But that's something you say. I've heard horror stories of teams where players will just mute their whole team and just play as if it's solo queue. So it's good to hear from someone like yourself, Landon, who is saying, "Don't do that. Come on." Like, if there's something there, there are other problems external to that, clearly.
Yeah.
So yeah,
If
no, it's
if
positive.
if you're on a team, or if I was working with a team where one player is constantly muting everybody else, that's going to be the thing that I'm tackling as the issue. It's not the in-game skills or anything like that. I'm going right after that communication because something has broken down, and it's either this person is tilting and they just don't want to hear anybody, or the team comms are just full of flame and toxicity. So there is clearly something in the comms section that I need to deal with. So that's, if I know a teammate's muting everybody, that's the first thing I'm targeting.
Brilliant. And I mean, Ryan, you've got some horror stories, it seems to be, from your time in Call of Duty. Hackers, like, are a common thing. Well, not common, that's not quite the correct thing to use, but wall hacks, we all know that. The guy who can just run around with either an op in CSGO who can just hit you from a mile away and you don't know what happened. Like, how can you stay more positive in your experience?
You can't. No, I'm joking. I'm only joking. Like, I mean, ok, listen, when people are resorting to cheating, you got to ask yourself, what type of person are they? They probably have a really shit life that they're doing something like that anyway. So
Hmm,
it makes me feel better thinking about, like, you know, why do it? Like, what are you actually trying to achieve? And then when you understand, really going back to landing, right? Focus on the controllables. The only thing you can control is you and your behavior and your emotional response. Like, for
sure.
example, Molly, who's training to be a psychologist, always says to me, I can't make you feel that way. Like, it's your emotional response. And the same with anything else. Like, if
Hmm,
you're in game and someone's pissing you off, you can you can feel an emotional response be evoked in your body, but it's your mind, when you attach and focus on it, that actually gives that emotion then space to become real and for you to feel it and you to become angry. Whereas if you can teach your mind to be aware of it, maybe in that second before it becomes it like becomes you and overtakes your thoughts, just try to see it and just let it go by and just breathe. Or for me, for example, and I can't take credit for this because it's actually Jason Cowman, who's our scientific advisor at Gscience. He's head of athletic
shout out
development
to him.
at Irish Rugby. Um, he uses two words, which are two trigger words, which is be and cancel. And for the last couple of
Hmm,
months now, I've been using this where if I'm feeling like a negative emotion or a negative thought or anything, just not a nice kind of way in which my mind's thinking, I'll just say cancel, and anytime it comes back, I say cancel again. And alluding to what Landon said earlier, your mind doesn't just like leave a problem. All of us, like for example, if you have done a bad play in a game, when you finish that game, say for example, it's like 5 all in search, and you made a terrible play and you lost the series in GBs or something. You're probably going to replay that a few times in your mind, be like, what if I done this? What if I done that? And I just think that you know, certain times you want to make sure that you just don't allow that emotion to overtake you and consume you. It's about accepting it, learning from it, and moving on. And I think that's key. So yeah, focus on your controllables. When you feel emotion coming, breathe through it or use a trigger word so it goes past. But in other times, to be honest with you guys, like fuck. Like, I mean, let's be honest, you're going to be really pissed off, and it's just going to happen. We are human beings. Sometimes just embrace the emotion, go for it, reset, and crack on.
Easy peasy.
Yeah.
Sometimes that happens.
Yeah.
I know in a team setting too, like I think one of the important things to remember is that you don't want to have a mental breakdown in the game with your team because you really do need to get that win. But
Yeah.
there is kind of with what Ryan's saying, there is time after the game to have those breakdowns and resolve those issues. So let's say the three of us are playing Apex and Ryan's clearly just running it down because that's what Ryan's going to do in Apex.
We've revved him for 3 times already.
Yeah, exactly. But we need to hold it together for that game. After the game, we might have a blowout and we might get it into it with Ryan, and we might have that kind of team conflict, which is fine. That's normal. Team conflict happens. We can resolve it there. But we want to make sure that when in the team setting, so anybody that's playing on a NUEL team, and this isn't a solo queue setting, hold it together during the game and then fix it later. Right, because you can have that breakdown, you can have that discussion, you can have that quick yell at each other or try and break each other down. Then we resolve that conflict, and then hopefully going forward, those things happen less and less and less. But it's pretty rampant in traditional sports too, where some of the best players keep it together during the game, and then in that locker room, they just lean into each other. But holding it together during game, that's going to help you win the game.
Perfect. I couldn't have actually thought of a better way to actually think of it. At the end of the game, that's the time to do it. But in the moment in the game, that's when you have to keep it together. Even if they're struggling to keep it together, you have to do it for the best of the team. And then afterwards, that's where you can let everyone's emotions out, but in a healthy and sensible environment, obviously, not just hard flaming them for 5 minutes, because then they're just going to feel pretty bad about themselves. And that's not positive for anybody moving forward. Gentlemen, we've got a few more things we've got to cover before we actually have to quickly go over all of the Twitch chat questions. So we've got a few things to quickly go through here.
We'll do 60-second questions.
So this one we've already briefly covered. I'm going to combine a few questions together here. And this is like, what are the best foods and drinks to eat before a match? Now, we already covered it throughout a whole day, but I'm thinking that last 5-10 minutes, or maybe while you're playing as well, what should you have next to you? And what kind of posture should you be playing with? Because obviously there are 2 types of players. There are those mouse and keyboard League of Legends, CSGO, but then there's also the Rocket League players and the Call of Duty players who play with a controller and they're hunched over. 2 not healthy positions. Bang, bang, there's a question.
Okay, so first thing regarding nutrition, we actually have a Fuel for Performance PDF that we can probably share with everyone, and I'll get Tom, if he's listening to this, to put that together and get in touch with you guys so everyone in the community can have access to that.
Thank you.
So you're welcome. Hopefully that'll help. Second thing, posture. Posture's a weird one because everyone just autonomically is built differently.
Yeah, now like,
you know what I mean? Like we're all like, everyone's different. Some people are tall, some people are small. It totally there necessarily is there's an optimal for you, but it's very bespoke to you as an individual. There are some papers that I'm sure if Jamie, our chief scientific officer, was here, he could kind of go through specifically what is the optimal angle for sitting. Should be like 95 to 115 degrees in terms of your seat position. The monitor should be just directly in front. It shouldn't be down too low or up too high.
But actually, to counteract that, CSGO players commonly play with the screens like right in their face, and they're just like hunched over like that, and it's hard to try and tell those players not to do that anymore, isn't it, Ryan?
Yeah, I think if you've gamed your whole life in a certain way, it's really hard to break that habit. So what I would say is, if that's what you're comfortable with, because another thing that's really important actually with ergonomics is comfort. One thing that can actually affect your cognitive functioning is your perception of how comfortable you feel. So if you're sitting in an uncomfortable position, that actually is going to affect your ability to focus in game. So sometimes, yes, it might not be the most optimal seating position that actually may lead to maybe an overuse injury, but a lot of these things can be band-aided by good S&C programs, doing mobility during the game, and resetting the posture every once in a while. So there are many ways. If we can't create an optimal position, we can definitely band-aid it through strength and conditioning and recovery exercises.
And I think one of the other things too is when you start exercising, one of the things you first notice, even before like the fitness, is that your posture does change just a little bit. Like your shoulders go back a little bit more, you have a little bit more core strength, whatever it is. Like your posture changes as a function of exercise, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh, I've definitely noticed that when I used to go to the gym actively a lot back a few years ago. My whole posture, I felt I got taller, and I'm almost I'm 6'6". I don't need to get taller. So
You're
there's-
twice my height. No, I'm just kidding. I'm 5'6". I'm a short boy.
you're average in most countries. I'm just exceedingly tall in a lot of spots.
Yeah.
So that's important. That's really good to know that if you do hunch over and play like with a crazy setup, obviously reset when you're everything when you're not playing, I think's a good thing to kind of bring back, as well as also comfort is key, which is something I completely wouldn't have thought of actually, because if it's comfortable to move your arm around crazy when you're playing CS:GO or Rocket League, or for instance, if you've got a controller, if you like playing with a weird controller, that's better, I guess. Would you say, Ryan?
I mean, once again, it comes down to the individual. A lot of these things are
Sure,
bespoke to
absolutely.
the
Yeah.
individual and what you. There's actually another wee nugget that I kind of can share with you now that we've actually found
Ooh.
out when we were working with Gamers Origin. So, and this is more Kate O'Keefe, who's our PhD. She's got a PhD in psychophysiology, but really
Shout out.
interesting things. Yeah, shout out to her. She's from Loughborough as well, phenomenal practitioner. Um, when you're gaming, it's super important to actually have ventilation in the room, and the reason why is
Mm.
if you have no ventilation in a room, the CO2 begins to build up if you're in there for like 8 hours, and an increase in CO2 actually reduces cognitive functioning, which is super interesting. And then the second thing as well, the perception of heat and cold on your skin can influence your cognitive performance. So really, one of the things that I'm sure Landon would touch upon as well when you've worked with players is when they're going to tournaments and on the stage, some of them may be too hot, some of them may be too cold if you're at LAN events, and that can actually really influence your in-game performance. So trying to find that optimal temperature is going to be key as well.
Hmm.
On that note, here's a little nugget from me too, real quick.
Ooh, so many
Um,
nuggets.
The conditions at events are sometimes an uncontrollable factor, right? Like it might be too hot and it might be too cold. If you set up your practices to practice in different temperatures too, you become a little bit more adaptable to it because you've been in that environment before. So sometimes practice in a little bit of a colder room, sometimes in a little bit hotter room. I'm not saying like extremes. Don't go causing a blizzard in your room or your paint to melt, like obviously, but just like a little bit different so that you have experienced that temperature already and you can adapt to it. So when you get in that environment, you're like, oh, all right, I'm ready to go. I've been here before.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's a really good idea as well. So loads of nuggets here. I hope people are taking notes. Also, there will be a VOD afterwards, ladies and gentlemen. So if you didn't catch it the first time around, go watch this VOD. Gentlemen, you have two incredible journeys, how you've really come together to really do your own sort of thing. Obviously, Ryan, far more in the sports side of it, where you came in and then you kind of focus on more the physical fitness and as well as the mental as well, obviously. And then Landon, you've got a completely different journey, but you've both brought together one of your passions with esports and kind of jammed them together. Part of this is obviously as a personal trainer with no experience, but also maybe a psychology student who's kind of noticing that maybe they can't go into criminology like they first thought, but they love video games. So, how would you each recommend, with your journey that you went on, how they could kind of get more into helping an esports organization or just maybe the esports world as a whole? We'll go Ryan first, and then we'll go Landon afterwards, if that's okay.
Yep.
Certainly good question. I think what we've
Sorry.
actually seen is we've seen a lot of people who are really interested in getting into esports right now, and lots of non-endemic practitioners who are qualified sports scientists or psychologists. I myself am a personal trainer, so I totally understand from whoever's asked this question. My biggest bit of advice would be reach out to people like ourselves in the industry. Like
Hmm.
we're always happy to have a chat, and if we can share any insights or help with introductions, we'd be happy to do so. Kind of keeping this under wraps a wee bit, but we'll fire a wee nugget out here is we're building our own coaching academy. So there's a first, which if you're interested and you want to get more experience, definitely reach out to us, and we'd be happy to have a chat and hook you up with some kind of semi-professional and amateur teams within the scene. But I think the most
You
important for
heard
me.
it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry to cut you off, Ryan, but you heard
That's
it
all
here
right.
first. There we go.
No,
Please continue.
no, definitely. But I think the most important thing, to be honest with you, is just get experience. The most important thing within esports is actually like getting hands-on with the players,
Mm.
understanding the unique challenges that only esports athletes and gamers face. And that's what I did when I first started. Like I was an esports performance coach with NSG, now Belfast Storm,
Mhm.
and they're kind of the biggest team in Northern Ireland. And I just reached out to Stuart there and said, "Listen, Stuart, this is my background. I'd love to get involved." And I was very lucky that he gave me the opportunity to do so. And just from that first experience, I was able to learn so much and tested so many of the assumptions that I had
Mm.
about esports athletes and gamers that were just totally wrong. And being able to do that and getting hands-on experience has then allowed us to really generate these insights and collect data, and ultimately build the product that we're building now, our athlete monitoring system. So that's my bit of advice: reach out to people, like, be a sponge, learn as much as you possibly can, and get your hands dirty. You need to go out there, get experience.
And I mean, bringing it back to the NUEL as well, if you are a part of the, or there's an esports society and you're not directly interested in competing, probably reach out to the teams that you probably got one or two teams at most universities who are commonly competing for the top 4 university in the UK for that game. Maybe if you reach out as a personal kind of physio person, they might go to that gold standard with your assistance there. So that might be something worth reaching out, and just an easier way for most students to get that first little edge in the door. Would you say, Ryan?
Yeah, I'd say, well, first thing first is join our Discord community.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, but genuinely, we haven't officially launched it yet, but we've had like 50 people join the last week. It's crazy.
Damn.
We're going to be doing lots of like coaching Q&A sessions. So myself and Landon and our practitioner team will be doing drop-in sessions to help people like yourself, whoever asked the question, about really understanding what it's like to work with esports athletes, and giving you some of these nuggets and tips to help you upskill and try in any way. I mean, we could definitely chat about this afterwards though, but even with Gscience and the NUEL, giving some of these students who are got sports science and psychology backgrounds an opportunity to work with some of these teams, we're obviously very happy to help support that.
Brilliant. And Landon, now it's your
Yep.
time to kind of give your point of view as well. Thank you so much so far, Ryan, by the way.
You're welcome.
Honestly, Ryan pretty much hit the nail on the head here.
Yeah.
But if you were going down any kind of similar path as I did, you're going through the psychology route, right? And I guarantee you that 90% of the professors that you're going to run into are in their 60s. They're old. That's sorry. Sorry, I don't mean to be offensive to any professors out there. They're old. They're not going to understand esports. And then when you get into your sports psych or your performance psych program at a master's level, you more than likely your professors in your cohort are all going to be a bunch of sport enthusiasts and fanatics. Like, nobody really is looking at the esports sector yet. It's coming. It's absolutely coming. But chances are, if you're looking at it in this moment, your educational and training path is going to be with like very traditional psychology and very traditional sports. It's not going to touch on esports. And that was, for me, that was my biggest barrier coming into the industry, is despite having all this esports knowledge and understanding gaming, I didn't understand the practical side of sport and performance psychology in esports, because nobody teaches that. So what I had to do is exactly what Ryan said. I had to reach out to people and I had to become a sponge. So I had to move cities because the home city that I'm from doesn't have esports yet, because it's in the middle of nowhere. So I moved to Toronto, and then I just started reaching out to a bunch of the local teams, a lot of the local organizations, and I just pretty much volunteered my time, and I learned by trial of fire, essentially, right? Like, I took all my sports knowledge, applied to esports, realized that didn't work, reevaluated, came back, and that's how I kind of learned it. And I now make the note that if I would have landed a big contract with like Cloud9 or something like that right out of the gates, I probably would have ruined my reputation, because I would have been trying to apply the wrong principles to them. So get your hands dirty, like Ryan said, and reach out to people that are in the industry. I've made a few posts on LinkedIn and Twitter saying that if you're coming in, shoot me a message and I'll give you every piece of advice I possibly can, because I don't want you to have to go through some of those pain and barriers that I went through, because nobody taught me how to work in esports. I had to go out and learn that myself. So I absolutely want to help the next generation who's coming in learn esports specific and not have to kind of figure it out themselves.
Brilliant. What? Whoa. I love this conversation so far. I would love to go so much deeper, gentlemen, but we really don't have the time. I'm going to be asking now my producer who's listening to us right now if we can extend this by a few minutes, just so I can quickly go through these Discord, the Twitch questions that we've got here. Gentlemen, I've already grabbed them, so let's run through them. We're going to have to spend only a moment on each of them, but some of them are going to be only a moment questions where it's not too much, and some of them are going to take a little bit longer, or we might refer to previous topic that we've already talked about. So the first question is, how can students develop a stronger mindset before a big tournament? I think we've already briefly covered that one a little bit when we talked about preparing just before it, but what about if it's a big tournament?
Thing you want to check out is, well, there's a thing called Bandura's self-efficacy theory. So self-efficacy and self-confidence are similar concepts, but just slightly different. Look, I always think if you're going to a big tournament, if you've ever played at a tournament of that level before, go back and look at your previous performance accomplishments, draw confidence from what you've already achieved, evaluate your pre-performance routine before you went up and evaluate your performance. You can draw a lot from that. The second thing is kind of vicarious experience. So if you look up to a certain player, for me, like I love Crimsix or Clayster in Call of Duty, you
Yep.
know, getting
Ooh,
confidence from
classic.
people who've been there and done that. That's how you can draw experience. If they can do it, so can I. Do you know what I mean? And look at how they approach it, what their mindset is. That can help you develop that champion mindset as well. And then I think verbal persuasion is the next one. Using really positive self talk, getting yourself in the right frame of mind before you go into play. Like I can do this. You know, I prepared well. I'm ready. You know, being in that headspace is super important. And then the final thing is emotional states. Making sure that
Mm.
emotionally you feel in the right kind of level. For some people perform optimally when they're super hyped. Some people like to be calm. Figure out what that performance state is for you, and you can do that by being self-aware and seeing whenever you performed at your best in game, what was your emotional state leading up to it. So that's kind of my top tips.
Brilliant, Lando. I'm gonna actually Landon. I'm gonna have you ask. I'm gonna ask you the next question. We're just gonna keep rallying through these, if that's okay. Next question we actually got. Well, what were some of the basic preparation or out of game techniques students can do to gain a competitive edge in game? So this is about preparing before the game, going into the game to get an edge over your opponent. Kind of related to the previous question.
Yeah.
Weirdly
Yeah.
enough.
Download an aimbot. No, I'm just kidding. Don't do that.
Right.
I think the best thing you can do is build structure and routine into your training programs, right? Like I was mentioned earlier, I have my morning ritual or my morning routine that I follow every day, and that really just primes me for what's coming this day and kind of conditions my brain that, all right, so this happened, this is what comes next. And that's one of the big things is building your routines, but then structuring things like I always say that creativity and learning isn't something that happens by chance. It's something that you structure. So you build your training program, figure out where in the day you train best. So for me, it's in the morning. So I play my games in the morning frequently. And I've structured it that way. And I've created an ecosystem that allows me to learn. I don't wait for those like big pop off moments to learn. I structure it and I kind of cultivate that learning environment. And I think that's the best thing you can do is structure.
Structure yourself to get the best edge possible, so when it does happen, it will happen more often for you. I really love that. Next question. We're gonna just keep going through these. Everyone playing in the NUEL obviously is doing a university degree or higher. To the same, but the amount of time that they can actually do for their game of choice, they're not going to have as much time to actually practice. So how do they get fully optimized with the limited amount of practice time for their designated game? Assuming also they're only playing one game, they're not maybe playing multiple different games. Gentlemen, who wants to take this one?
I don't mind taking that
Okay,
one.
Ryan, go for it.
Yeah, I think key thing is just time management. Like it really is. It's so
Okay.
fundamentally important. I mean, I was pretty poor at this. To be honest, when I was at uni, I left everything the last minute and like crammed everything.
Same here.
I was bad at that. Yeah, but it worked for me. I needed pressure to be able to perform, and that's just how it worked for me. But yeah, I think when you're at uni, you've obviously got like multiple kind of things that are important to you. If it's friends, if it's gaming, if it's sport,
Societies and the like, yeah.
of course your uni work societies. Yeah, so I think the way I do it
Oh,
is kind
work,
of
yeah.
put a priority list in. So what's the most important thing? Break it down by 100% and allocate your time like that. And then with regards to maximizing your performance in game, if you have little time, what Landon said earlier about keeping a journal, about notes, so tactical and technical kind of things. So like, do lots of good like self-journaling notes and be self-aware. Like write down, okay, what are the areas that I'm weak at, and then next time you go to play in that short window that you have, train smart instead of just training aimlessly. And we have a thing that we like to say. It's like if you train smarter, you can game harder, and I think that's super important.
Absolutely. I think I've just died webcam wise, but
I think so.
That's cool.
That's the producer's hint that it's time to hang up.
It's probably a brief hint. I don't quite know what's happened, honestly.
We'll take it from here, Alex. It's fine.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're the new faces of NUEL.
While hopefully I can get things loaded up back over on my end. Next question, I've actually still got it up in front of me, and this was actually a great one for Landon, sir. Kind of going in, people are going to have different expectations for the games they're playing, and teams are going to have different hopes and drives for this. What's a good way to kind of figure out and manage these expectations, the level of play that people want to play at between everybody?
Yeah, so I think a great starting point for this is establishing a team goal, right? If you're playing a game and you have 5 people on a team and everybody has a different goal, one person wants to become top 8, one person wants to become top the best team, the other person is just playing for fun. You have 5 different goals that you're aiming for in a team. Everybody's gonna be pushing for a different direction or pushing in a different direction. Oh, there you are.
Hello.
So I think that is the starting point is understand what you want to accomplish as a team, right? If you
Mm.
don't have a unified goal, you're not going to be playing a unified game and your practices are going to be a little bit chaotic because everybody's trying to do their own thing. And really try and build the team culture that states the team priority, the priorities of the team is more important. So if your
Sure.
goal is to just play for fun, but you're on a team that wants to take number 1, you have to understand that being part of that team, by being part of that team, you are agreeing that your mission is to become number 1. It's not to be playing for fun because you are joining something else. And I think that's the starting point. I'm not going to get too deep into it because we're doing rapid round, but yeah,
Yeah.
starting point is a collective team goal.
Yeah, and I think that mirrors up the expectations of, are you going to be doing practice regularly? Are you going to be doing behind the scenes stuff? Are you actually expecting to maybe talk occasionally to maybe a sports psychiatrist or a physio person or anything that might be coming in and joining the society and saying, hey, I'm here to help out? Linking back to our previous question from a while ago, that person who might be trying to
Yep.
learn and try out some new things, understand that that person will be that kind of interaction with you and having that expectation built in. Cool.
Exactly. And if you have that team, oh, sorry. I was
Just
going to say,
effective communication, really.
exactly. And if you have that team goal, you can build out the team expectations from that. Like if you want to be number 1, then everybody's agreeing that you have to practice X amount of hours. If you're a team for fun, which by the way is great. If you're playing video games just for fun, sweet, awesome. But make sure your team knows that. And if that's the kind of culture you are, if that's your goal, then there's a different expectation that when we come in, it's going to be a lot of like friendly trash talking and good times kind of thing. Like so there is by establishing that goal, you can set expectations.
Cool. And I think that's really healthy. Ryan, back over to you for this next question. How can you improve consistency in performance? I mean, consistency is good, but you don't want to be consistently bad half the time. You want to be consistently good, and it's not always an easy thing. And if you're struggling to find that consistency, how would you tell someone that's a client coming to you, say, how can they manage their consistency a little bit more effectively, maybe?
I mean, you're all going to be really bored with the same answers, but it really comes down to being mindful. It's really, but it really does. You need to be so self-aware, and when you look at consistency, you need to look at, okay, what was my performance output? What was my in-game performance, right?
Hmm.
And anytime you've had a good in-game performance, what you want to do is look at what was your preparation prior to that. So did you have the right pre-performance routine? Did you take your caffeine at the right time? That week, had you sat down as a team and done, 4 team scrim sessions, really look at what were the things that you did in the lead up that led to that optimal outcome. And then if you track it over a longitudinal period of time, you're going to start seeing patterns and trends, and you're going to go, oh, okay, maybe I need to do 3 scrim sessions a week. I need to take my caffeine 30 minutes before. I need to do physical exercise every day. And you'll start to see this is what's going to help you get into that optimal gaming zone. Um,
Yeah,
and,
there's not
and
that light switch moment, really. You can't just suddenly fix it.
look, real change takes time. We say this to all the people we work with, all these esports teams get us to come in and go, we want you to, fix someone yesterday. And we're like, listen, we're not in the game of magic pills or quick fixes. Real behavioral change. You need to have the right mindset and be open to it. And you can look at the patterns and trends and build in that structure and then routines. And that's more likely going to give you optimal performance more consistently.
Cool. Brilliant. Thank you so much. Final question over to you, Landon. I'm just phrasing the question. I'm repeating it. I'm not actually a sports psychologist, but this is where they go with this. We, as sports psychologists, know that we aim for healthier competition, but we know that high performance is unhealthy. You can answer if you think that is true or false. What do you guys think of those unhealthy behaviors that are? What are those behaviors that we must be keeping or maybe getting rid of? So I'll let you take it from here.
Oh, do we have another hour?
I did
This
think that.
this is currently the ongoing debate within esports. At
Mm.
what point do we draw the line, the boundary for performance and health? Because you can have the best player in the entire world, top solo queue, getting paid the most, and they're just the most unhealthy person you can imagine. Like that is possible. Performance doesn't always mean mental health. So this is a tough one because we don't have concrete evidence on where that boundary is yet. How far can we push a player? At what point is this becoming like a militaristic or an abusive coaching style? Is this bad for them? Are we taking away from their life because we want to see them be better? Like, we have to be asking ourselves those questions. And I don't think there is a hard set answer yet because esports is new and because we don't fully have the literature out yet. It doesn't describe where that is. One of the things that I do with a lot of my players, so this isn't fully answering your question, but I ask this question to my players. I make them very well aware that there's going to be sacrifice and it's going to be hard, and you might be, for this pursuit, you might be giving up some of your sanity or some of your mental health. At what point do you want to call it quits? How can I be helping you? What's your expectations from me? Do you want me to be kind of giving you feedback on when I think you're getting to an unhealthy point? I have a very open and honest conversation with them because we don't have that answer yet. I want to make sure that they feel safe and secure, that while they're pushing for the top, I'm there to make sure that they're not cracking, they're not breaking, they're not having these mental breakdowns, they're not getting depressed. Because I'm sure all of us have seen so far, like the constant Twitter messages of people unfortunately taking their own lives or going through depression or having to stop gaming professionally because of a mental or physical health issue. So no, I don't think performance and mental health always are the same thing. We're still developing a series of best practices of how we can manage mental and physical health while pushing performance, but that's still an ongoing discussion and it's still an ongoing exploration because esports is too new to know a definitive answer on that so far. And again, sorry, this is me trying to condense everything that I think on this topic into like a 1 minute period, but this is a entire day conversation of how far can we push an athlete and not hurt their mental or physical health.
Oh, potentially that might be a question or even a topic that we might one day cover in maybe another webinar in the future. Nothing confirmed in the future. I just like to say things to get people's hopes up anyway.
Webinar confirmed.
Oh, absolutely. Webinar number 2, the sequel. 2.0 actually, weird. Gentlemen, that actually brings us to the end of this webinar. I want to hand it over to each of you. First, I'll go to you, Landon, and then Ryan, to just give any closing thoughts, shout outs, thank yous, or anything else you want to try to kind of plug, honestly, even including your Twitch stream.
Oh yeah. So speaking of my Twitch stream, hey, I've officially started streaming as of last week. It's every Thursday, and sorry for everybody in the UK, this is gonna be an awful time for you, but it's gonna be from 5 to 10 EST, which is 5 hours behind you. So that starts at 10 and goes till 3 in the morning. So enjoy that. But if you do stay up for it, if your sleep schedules are all sorts of crazy right now because of COVID, I try to always bring on other performance coaches or other coaches within the industry. So for tomorrow, for example, I have Robert Yip coming on from Misfits Gaming. Well, I think his contract has ended, but he was the performance coach for Misfits for the last 2 years. Last week, I had somebody on from the LA Gladiators. In the future, there'll be a guy coming from the Olympic scene from Canada, but I don't know when that is yet. But just trying to, I'm truthfully not very good at gameplay, so it's just going to be more educational with some mediocre gameplay in the background. If you want to learn a few things, come join it. It's just Vertex Performance. That's my Twitch handle. And again, I kind of mentioned this earlier on. If you guys do ever have any questions or you are thinking about getting into the field similar to me, like the whole sports psychology or performance coaching, shoot me a message, just follow me, shoot me a message, and I'm happy to chat. That's one of my missions, one of my values in life is to make sure that I'm training the next wave of players and coaches, and I want to make sure that they're prepared for it. So I'm always happy to chat, give advice, and that's pretty much all the plugs I got. Twitch and send me messages.
Perfect. Connect, reach out on any and all social media. He said he's on Twitch, he's on Discord, probably. Well, I know he is. He's on Twitter, LinkedIn. He's over there. So if you want to reach out, he's available. Ryan, your moment for the floor, sir.
Thank you very much. Well, firstly, as I said before earlier on, it's fantastic to have the partnership with the NUEL. I'm really excited for all of the amazing things we've got planned for the community over the next couple of months. So we really hope that we can add value and kind of touching upon what Landon said there, if there is any questions whatsoever about any of the health and wellness and performance factors, please just reach out to us. And also, we're launching our Discord community soon, which are going to have lots of performance coaches from professional teams as well, and our own performance team coming in and giving insights and knowledge. So there'll be lots of knowledge bombs there. If you want to follow us, check us out on Twitter at gscience.io. We've got our website, which is also gscience.io. We'll be launching our Twitch stream and podcast very soon as well. So yeah, thank you very much for your time. I really hope everyone, you got something out of that today. And if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out.
Some nuggets here and there.
Some, I think many is more the better
Yeah.
term to use. The amount of knowledge that came out, I'm like, oh, I need to remember that for later. Oh, I need to remember that for later. But gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on. This was a partnership brought together from the NUEL and Gscience. Thank you, both of you, coming on here. And with that said, that's going to be the end of the show. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. And I'm sure we'll see you all very, very soon.
See you guys.
See you later. Give us something.